Hello and welcome to the podcast by Literature Times. Today we have Miss Anjali Rungta, an author, a poet, and an eco-conscious entrepreneur with over 15 published books to her credit. Hello and welcome, ma'am.
Hello. Hi, nice to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Ma'am, I just want to know the overall concept of your book.
So I have published 11 books, but the book that won the Legacy of Literature Award by Literature Times is Sia. And the concept of Sia is about healing from trauma, healing from generational familial trauma, healing from trauma as a woman, and how autonomy looks like for many women. So, and the idea of the story is to put forth this reality that healing is not linear, healing is not easy, but healing can be very worthwhile if one finds the correct healing meant for them.
Yeah, absolutely, ma'am. So, ma'am, I want to know what inspired you to write about the healing process.
So the story actually started around in 2015 as a sort of critique of how humanities students in India are treated, but it kind of developed beyond that because I started seeing that there were a lot of people struggling with mental illness, myself included, right? And started seeing how much passion we have towards the art and how it's all interlinked, right? At some point, like obviously not everything might be, but the fact that some students who take the arts and the story just kind of evolved from there. So yes, that is why I ended up writing about mental health and trauma, because I realized I cannot talk about passion without talking about mental health.
Okay. And ma'am, could you tell us more about Sia's role and what is Sia and how she goes through the healing process? And
So Sia is obviously the protagonist of the novel. The novel is named after her, and the story starts with her at rock bottom despite having a perfect life on paper, right? Because the thing with trauma and mental illness is that it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't see, oh, you're doing very well so you'll be spared. Obviously if you have ideal circumstances, it's unlikely that your mental health will be impacted, but what looks ideal on paper and what is ideal for a person in reality can be vastly different sometimes, and that is what happened in the case of Sia. So her role is to basically show what mental illness can feel like. I have tried to get inside her head, show like how it can make you feel like you're fighting yourself at times and how it manifests. And that's where the magic realism bit comes in, because the novel, I've tried to write it in the psychological realism style with streams of consciousness inspirations, but magic realism is a huge part because I feel like through that, especially through her powers where she can project her memories and that being out of control, right, sort of shows how out of control mental illness can make you feel sometimes, even though you know you're in the driving seat.
absolutely. So, ma'am, how did you come to develop such a strong and yet vulnerable character?
So Sia is inspired by a lot of women I have seen, a lot of women I'm close to, and a lot of the characters in the book are actually inspired by women I'm close to. For example, Kate Key is modeled after some of the best therapists I have worked with, right? So a lot of Sia I feel is a reflection of myself. She's not me, but a lot of her is a reflection of myself. A lot of her is a reflection of what I feel Indian women are. That is why I've named her Sia, because Sia actually is a name given to Sitama, and I feel like that is the ideal that Indian women are meant to be, right? You're supposed to be this person, but a lot of us fall short of that ideal because we are only human. So Sia is supposed to represent that, what, not a traditional or a modern Indian woman, but a vulnerable Indian woman. Like, I wouldn't say the story is set in India, but Sia is definitely inspired by Indian women and women worldwide, but mainly Indian women.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, ma'am, what is that one message you hope your readers to take away from the book?
So I would say I wish people take away that A, therapy can be incredibly healing if it works for you, and B, healing is possible. It's tough, it's not linear, it's painful, but it's worthwhile.
Definitely, ma'am. And ma'am, how has your own experience of with sustainability and mental health shaped your writing?
So when it comes to sustainability, it has shaped the medium of my writing a lot, right? Because I work with upcycled paper, recycled paper. Sustainability has also informed Sia's story in the sense that she feels climate anxiety. Her anxiety takes her urge to do good in the world in whatever way makes sense to her to an extreme level where she starts holding herself to perfect, unreasonable standards, which is heavily inspired by the idea of sustainability burnout that I talk about a lot on my blog. Right. Because to me, healthy sustainability is a balance between your resources, your limits, your needs, your systems, and what the planet needs, what is good for other people. Right. You cannot force
Yeah,
yourself to go beyond what you are ready for. You obviously should keep striving for growth, but that's a separate matter. Adaptability is very important, even in sustainability. So that inspired a lot of the interlink between climate anxiety and how actual anxiety can make it worse. Obviously, climate anxiety is also actual anxiety, but how generalized anxiety can make it worse. That inspired a little bit in Sia's story. And my own thing with mental health, a lot of what Sia learns throughout the story, I learned in therapy. Obviously, I got people to proofread the book to make sure that the advice Ketki is giving Sia is appropriate for Sia's situation, right? Because obviously C and me vastly different at the end of the day. So that I got like actual students of psychology and psychologists to review that. And I think with the fact that I went to therapy, the fact that I found healing in therapy, the fact that I realized I have negative patterns and people around me have negative patterns and how those sort of cross each other and holding space for contradicting truths to exist together, all of that inspired a lot of what Sia goes through.
definitely. So, ma'am, you also run a eco-friendly
Yes.
what publishing house. So, what inspired that initiative?
So that was A, inspired by the fact that I wanted books to be sustainable. Like, obviously, the publishing industry is not the driver of climate change in any way, but I feel like every industry can contribute. So there was that. But mainly, when I published my books, I realized that for people who want to hold rights of their book, who are scared of the big traditional publishers, the avenue becomes self publishing, which can either be very expensive or it means doing everything yourself, right, without any support. And I think writing is difficult as it is. Publishing shouldn't be, nor should it be expensive. It should be easy on the planet and on the wallet. So that was the idea behind the publishing writer side of Musa Saga. The reader side, which is the online reading without paywalls, updated after a certain amount of sales are reached, every chapter is updated. It was sort of the idea that a lot of students who could benefit from fiction, because fiction really expands our mind, right? They do not have
Yeah,
access to it because obviously student budgets. I was a student in a hostel when I was writing Sia. So to give those demographics the advantage of reading while still being able to support authors through likes, shares, tips on coffee, or buying from affiliate sustainable links, things that they genuinely need. All of that sort of created this ecosystem where I felt like writers and readers could mutually benefit each other without money being involved as much.
definitely, ma'am. So, ma'am, what were the challenges you faced while running this publishing sustainably, and how did you overcome those?
Okay, so our goal was to get diverse Indian voices in literature. First of all, we did not have a robust enough team to be able to do that justice. We are still in the process of that. Second of all, social media marketing. We are still figuring that one out still. And like on the production side, the cost. Because while now we have recycled paper that is almost on par with cost with normal paper, conventional paper, that is still sometimes difficult, especially in smaller books. Plus, if you don't want plastic laminated covers, they'll say the cover will die out fast because they cannot do print on demand and UV covers at the same time. So, figuring out whether you want durability or whether you want lack of plastic, and how else can you have durability without plastic, going for thicker paper, all of those were logistical challenges along. But the biggest challenge I feel was cost, and alongside cost there was the idea of finding local printers because we wanted to work with printers within our cities and not imported paper if possible, and finding people who are trained in this while making it cost efficient. So we're still figuring all of these challenges out, to be honest. Like, for course, we've realized larger books obviously do better, but again, it's a work in progress.
Definitely, ma'am. So, ma'am, how do you balance your creative pursuit, like writing, blogging, content creation, then again going to the entrepreneurship? How do you balance these?
I really don't. I mean, I've tried giving everything one day and then like rest of the week to my masters and PhD research, but I really don't. Like, I don't think I've uploaded my blog in like the past 3 months. I have not touched social media for almost a month because I've been so swamped with research. So I try. Ideally, I would have one day a week dedicated to everything, but when inspiration strikes, I end up writing for weeks without doing anything else. Like right now, that's the case with research inspiration. And when exams come, everything goes to the side. Or if like there are a lot of orders rolling in for the publishing house. But I also have very supportive friends and family who do try to help me where they can.
Definitely, ma'am. So, ma'am, what role does poetry play in your life and also in your work?
So at one point, poetry was one of the biggest things in my life. It still holds a major role as a form of expression. I mean, I still write poetry when I'm overwhelmed, right? And in my work, poetry has was one of the first things I wrote, right, as a published author after my children's book that's no longer in print. So, and even now, the latest book I've published, a Bard's collection, is poetry I've written almost over a decade. So poetry allows me to express myself. And while prose can do that too, poetry does not have the hang up of having an overarching plot. Poetry can be a snapshot of a moment, of a feeling. I do try to tell stories through my poems, but sometimes poetry is just that, an ideology in verse.
Definitely, ma'am. And what has been the most rewarded moment of your writing career so far?
I would like to say it's the awards, but I would say for my research writing career, it is the idea that it's very pretentious, but sometimes I'm like, what if someday I create new knowledge? That would be very nice. But I think truly till now, the most rewarding moment of my writing career has been when people have emailed or texted me saying, your writing changed my life, your writing helped me process grief, whether it's your fan fiction or your original work, your writing helped me go through this, your writing helped me understand this better, because that's why I want to write, to give people a voice, to give people a space where they feel less alone. So when, like, I got a review one time where they said your work is beautiful, I just recently lost a family member and your work helped me sit with that grief, not just escape it but actually sit with it. So I feel like that is when I'm reaching the objective of my writing. So those are the most rewarding moments.
Definitely, ma'am. So, ma'am, which author books really inspired you or influenced you the most?
So that's a huge list. I mean, Enid Blyton was one of the first authors that got me into professional writing. And other than that, there's a lot of authors on fan fiction and archive of our own who I hold deep respect for. For Sia in particular, I would say Gabriel Marquez for magic realism was a huge inspiration. Sia is also very similar to the show WandaVision. The WandaVision came out like around the time Sia was being finished. But I would say another huge inspiration for Sia was Streams of Consciousness. While I haven't read Virginia Woolf, just the literature around her was, and obviously Sylvia Plath. Taylor Swift, even though it's not a book, Taylor Swift's poetry, songwriting was a huge source of inspiration. And I think you can see a lot of the inspirations in Sia from the chapter titles. Like the novel's name is Sia, a Suicide's Argument because of Coleridge. So I feel like there was a
Yeah,
lot of influence of my literature degree, maybe not the works themselves, because I haven't read every single work I might have quoted, but there's a lot of influence of the theory of literature. And obviously Dostoevsky, because psychological realism is attributed to Descartes. Okay, I cannot say the name; it's a Russian name. I'm so sorry. And other than that, there's this book called The Portrait of a Lady, which is on my TBR for years. But apparently, it was very well known for psychological realism. A lot of psychological literature affected my work a lot, like the concept of mindfulness and how to use psychology in writing. There's this YouTube creator called Hello Future Me, very inspired by his work as well. So yeah.
definitely. So, ma'am, what was the most difficult part of your book? Like, was it the editing part or the drafting part or the final touches? And
I would
why?
I would say the most difficult part currently is rereading the work. I absolutely loathe that. But I would say actually coming up with a plot. One of my earliest editors, I think it was Mangi, who literally said the work lacks a plot. So actually structuring, because it started off as letters to an imaginary friend, then it turned into something else. Actually structuring everything into a cohesive story was very difficult. I had to take a lot of writing classes to do that. So I would say that was the most difficult part, yes. And obviously, a lot of people tell me my writing reads dry, it's very dense, it reads like a research paper. So, I mean, that is an ongoing difficulty. I do not adhere to
Okay,
the
and
paper at all.
oh, and what was the favorite part of it?
I think my favorite part of all of it was when I finished the book and realizing, okay, I have actually written a full novel. Like, and the brainstorming with my friends, the table readings, those were very fun. And writing the romantic aspect. I am at heart a romance reader and writer. So writing Sia and Dhruv's relationship was very fun. Writing about her friends was a lot of fun. And the lyrical, poetic bit of the prose writing was absolutely my favorite.
Okay. And is there anything you discovered yourself while writing this book, or something which you never knew that was within you and you finally found it?
I think I found and lost the ability to stay dedicated to a project, to find inspiration for 7 years for something. Because now, when I try to start a novel, it's like, itna zyada likhna padega. But because I've gotten so used to short form blogs and scripts and stuff. But with Sia, there was this drive that no, this novel, this story inspires me. So I found that I really found what inspired me for a story. So I would say.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And what advice would you love to give young writers, those who are starting to write a novel or want to start writing?
You're going to get a lot of ideas and you're going to want to work on all of them. Not a lot of them are going to work out. It's okay. And if you want to write something which is heavy, get sensitivity readers. If you're telling somebody else's story, get sensitivity readers. Because it's very easy to get swept up in the story and forget that you are actually writing for real people. That has happened to me, right? And remember to enjoy writing. It's okay to take a long time. It's very privileged for me to say that, but there's a lot of writing out there. Like at one point I was in love with writing novels, now I'm in love with writing journalistic articles. There was a point where I loved writing research papers. So writing doesn't have to be what everyone says writing is. And obviously learn marketing. You will need marketing if you want to make it as an author. Get a good marketing team, learn marketing yourself if you want to make money as an author, and have 20 other jobs on the side, because we are in a country where the reading population is still in its infancy. So it takes a lot to get people to pick up a book here.
Yeah, definitely, ma'am. So, ma'am, how do you overcome what we say a writer's block, like the lack of inspiration? What do you do at that time? How do you overcome it?
Okay, so I read a lot of good quality works on AO3. I read in general. Sometimes I just give up. Like right now, I'm having a little bit of a writer's block, and I'm like, okay, it is how it is. I'm going to work on my nonfiction. I'm going to work on my research. I don't think I have actually written a full length work since yeah, I've been writing short stories and stuff because I've been so caught up in other forms of writing. So there's that. I allow myself to get distracted. I am what we call a pantster in the writing community. So I am very swept by flow of inspiration as opposed to sticking to my writing plans. But yeah, I don't worry a lot about writer's block unless I'm in a really bad mood, then I'll scream and cry about it. But usually I'm not the kind of person who pushes through. I just wait for ideas to come back and work on whatever else is inspiring me at the moment, which again only works because I have 20 projects open at any given point. But yes, if I have to write a
Definitely.
content piece for work and I'm feeling writer's block, I read about it, I try to write it, and if not, well, deadline ke pehle kuch to dena hai. I delay it as much as
Mm.
possible. But and sometimes when you sit and start writing, things start turning out. It might not be great, but it's always good.
Definitely, ma'am. And could you recommend readers any three most favorite book of yours or which influenced you a lot to write Sia
So,
or to heal you?
okay, so first of all, I don't believe in self help books that much. But if you want to read good fiction, again, depends on your genre. But if you're into fantasy, The Lord of the Rings. It inspired every other fantasy book after it. So if you read Lord of the Rings, you're already reading the cream of the crop. If you're into romance, I would suggest reading. I would actually suggest following Elizabeth Wheatley on social media. She gives great romance recommendations. Right? If you are into science fiction, I mean, I have been recommended Dune, but it's a very dense work that takes a very, very long time to read. So there's that. And if you're into comforting literature, Enid Blyton. And if you want to read books that inspired Sia, it'll be a lot of short stories. It'll be Virginia Woolf's works. It'll be stuff like Orlando. It'll be Mrs. Dalloway. It'll be stuff like Jane Eyre, and it'll be a lot of history of literature. So I guess if I
Definitely,
had to
ma'am.
just pick three books, it would be Hobbit, it would be Jane Eyre, or actually Jane Austen, anything by Jane Austen, Sense and Sensibility, and Lord of the Rings.
Okay. And ma'am, what's next project? What are we getting next?
I have no idea myself. I'm working on something in the vein of I mean I'm trying to read The Hungry Tide and go back to God of Small Things for my research. So yes, you can expect a lot of research if you're interested in that. I recently won an award for my Doctor Who research on genre hybridity. I am publishing a paper today itself. Like I've submitted it and it should get published, hopefully, on how climate fiction inspired by feminist fiction, stuff like that. But if you are talking about fiction, I think you would have better luck following me on Youth Ki Awaaz or on my blog because those will get updated much faster than a book will come out. This morning, I was working on a non-fiction book about Indian fabrics, which are sustainable, which aren't, etc. And I am trying really hard to write a fiction story about a princess who's trying to win back her country and take them from wealth to prosperity. And she's actually a goddess reborn, but it's a very work in progress, will take years, might never turn out sort of a piece.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, you are really something because working on so many different things all together and yet being so creative that really matters. And how did your writing journey begin and did it begin and how?
So first of all, really something not really true because I know a lot of writers who have like a lot more fingers in a lot more pies, and I am constantly in awe of them. And as for how my writing journey began, I've always been writing, right? Growing up in Kolkata, you go to ICSE schools and they have that compulsory essay and story component, right? My mom is a very good writer herself. So there's that. And my mom loved to encourage me to read. And once you start reading, you start thinking, what if I wrote this story? And so, I took stories which my parents told me, change character names and wrote them down in a notebook, trying to pretend I'm a famous writer. That was when I was 9. And then I found fan fiction around the time I was 11. Still very grateful for that. So I started writing a lot of that. And then I started reading Enid Blyton around the same time and went to boarding school and was like, wait, I can do this. Didn't turn out well, but I did do that. So that led to my first book at the age of 13 to 15. Thankfully, it is out of print now because I remember one of the first lines was, the skies are clear and it is heavily snowing, which looking back makes absolutely no sense. And then obviously the reception of that book wasn't well, so it kind of did put me on the back foot. But I kept writing fan fiction, I kept reading psychology to improve my characters, and then I ended up writing Abduction of a Queen, which is like a Greek Hades Persephone romance retelling from my life's lens. But then I realized, hey, I'm not Greek, I shouldn't be writing about their culture. And that is when I watched this movie called English Medium, and my mom was like, hey, you can write something like this about humanities students, and the journey to Sia began. And in the middle, when I was really in the middle of Sia, I was like, let me write a poetry book from Sia's perspective. It'll raise some buzz about Sia. Obviously, halfway through that, I changed the plot of Sia. So there's that.
So, ma'am, what was your family's reaction once they saw the book, your first book? What was your mom's reaction?
I really don't remember. I remember her telling my dad that I wrote a book when I wrote the first one, and him going, "Oh, let's if it's good, let's get it published." My dad's very supportive. He's like a pillar of support 90% of the time, right? I would actually say 99 to 100% of the time. And so he was like, "Let's get it published." He got an editor. He got a whole team. Obviously, I tried to do everything on my own, which was a disaster. I'm sure that book is like a copyright minefield because of like the number of things I have just taken from places and being like, oh, this is completely all right. I was 13. I was a child. Right. I did not really understand IP law. I did not steal anyone's work, but I thought anything that's on Google is fair use. Right. So that, and by the time I wrote Sia, they were just used to me writing books. So at that point, I was like, oh, you finished another book. Good. Let's go on with our lives. It's like
Okay.
it's like होता है रोज की बात है nothing big about it.
Okay. And when you start your publishing house, so what was the reaction then?
Honestly, not much because they were like, let's see whether this works out. I mean, they were supportive, obviously, but we were going through a kind of a rough patch sort of a situation, like between my ideas and what my family expected out of a career. So it was more like, देखो जो करना है कर लो फिर if you're not going to listen to us. So they were supportive though. They were like very much whatever investments you need, we are there for you. Whatever help you need finding places, they spent like nights brainstorming with me. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that was great, ma'am. So the if you want to like conclude your vision of life or your vision after writing Sia, what would it be?
I wanted Sia to be like the book I'm known by. I was like, when I started writing Sia, I was very young, and this is very important because I was like, oh, this is going to be like To Kill a Mockingbird was for Harper Lee. Obviously not, right? So it's good in a way because I'm inspired to write more things. I have space to grow as a writer, and like my partner is awfully supportive in that. Like I forgot to mention actually, if you want to read great books, read his books. One of my favorite short stories is written by him. It's called Deity Rhapsody, right? But other than that, the thing is, I have a lot of friends who are great writers. So it's always a pleasure to be like, okay, I wrote this and have them tear it apart or have them praise it because that's how you grow as a writer. So that would be my vision after Sia, that I want to write a lot, whether it's research, whether it's blogs, whether it's short stories. I would like to write a few novels on climate fiction. I would like to write upon existential issues. And I want to write something that actually benefits people, not just entertain, because entertainment has a lot of value, but benefits. And obviously I want a fandom. I want people to like my work. I want them to appreciate it. I want them to feel loved by it. And I would like to see an adaptation of it someday maybe. So but I don't think
Definitely,
Sia
ma'am.
is the kind of story that would work well on television, but one can dream, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So, are you thinking of writing or getting into something which is adaptable for the TVs and all?
I don't really know because right now I'm thinking of a comic adaptation of Sia. Like I'm in talks with someone regarding that. But I really don't think I can write something with. I am actually working on a short story that we're trying to turn into a film. It's called The Mall. It's part of Once Upon a Sublime, published by Musa Saga. Right? It's a story of a group of friends caught in a mall, which will only let you out if you buy something you like. But there are consequences to what you pick. So I really think that would make a fun video game. But that's just me. I'm not good with video games. Right. So we are trying to turn that into a movie, but I don't think I'm writing anything with the mind of okay, isko aise adapt kar sakte hain. I let the writing flow through me. I'm just the medium.
Mhm.
So
Definitely. So I'm looking forward to your next work because, like, doing so many tasks all together, going for the masters and PhD, and again to the content creation, blogging, then writing on different genres, research papers, all together. So, yeah, that's amazing to have you here, and I really look forward to have you here again. And thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights and your journey with us and inspiring a lot of readers or lot of viewers watching the podcast. So, yeah, thank you so much and have a great
thank
day,
you for
ma'am.
having me. Thank you for having me, ma'am. You too.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am. Have a good day.